All right. Hello and welcome again. Welcome to UC Berkeley again, and welcome to Bridge 2014. For those of you who have already joined us, this may be a bit of a repetition, but thank you for your patience. I'm Roya Soleimani, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for the day. Thank you all for joining us for this truly historic event, one that is hopefully one of many to bring together these sorts of conversations. As a Berkeley alumna and someone who works in technology now at Google, I'm really happy to be hosting all of you today. At this time, I'd also like to welcome the thousands of you who are joining us in spirit via our live stream, and a special salam va durud to those joining us from Iran, Jai Shoma Khali. We've brought together some of the brightest minds from Silicon Valley and from Iran to explore the opportunities and challenges of high-tech entrepreneurship in Iran and its impact on the country's ongoing economic growth. The Bridge 2014 conference is predicated on the notion that the promotion of entrepreneurship and innovation is indispensable to growth in Iran. At this time, I'd like to welcome you to watch a short video and a welcome from Robert Price, who's the Vice Chancellor of Research here at UC Berkeley.
Greetings. I regret that I cannot be with you this morning in Berkeley, but at this very moment, I am sitting in a cafe on the Rue d'Auditorium in the Malay section of Paris. Life is tough. Now turning to more serious business at hand, on behalf of the University of California, the Berkeley Program on Entrepreneurship and Development in the Middle East, charter members of Bridge 2014, as well as the organizing committee of Bridge 2014, I would like to welcome you to today's conference, Bridge 2014, High-Tech Entrepreneurship in Iran, Opportunities and Challenges. To the extent that they are used together, the words Iran and high-tech are generally combined to either draw attention to computer viruses targeted on Iran's nuclear program, or on the prohibitions against the sale of dual-use technologies. Yet, combining the advantages of a population of more than 80 million, world-class universities, and a large, technically savvy expatriate population that is heavily involved in the high-tech sector, Iran is positioned, should sanctions be lifted, to emerge as a startup nation. The extent of Iranian-American involvement and achievements in high-tech, as well as their enthusiasm about bridge building to bring high-technology entrepreneurship to Iran, was recently made clear to me when we started planning for today's conference. When Dariush informed me that he planned to convene the conference at the Wheeler Auditorium, charging $100 entrance fee per person, I suggested quite strongly that he change the venue to a much smaller place. But to my surprise, the advanced purchases of tickets to this conference exceeded 500. During the course of today's conference, participants will scrutinize the issues impacting high-tech entrepreneurship in Iran, the extent to which prevailing conditions in the country inhibit robust entrepreneurship, and what should be done to alter those conditions. Some of the specific issues that will be addressed include the status of civilian research and development spending, the number of current startups, the protection of intellectual property rights, the legal and regulatory environment, and the availability of venture capital. Special attention will be paid to how Tehran can succeed in becoming a regional entrepreneurial hotspot, as well as the role that the city's diverse and cosmopolitan nature can play in fostering the creative tensions and intellectual exchanges that are paramount for unleashing technical creativity. Have a wonderful conference.
We have another host here from UC Berkeley. I'd like to welcome now Professor Jack Citrin to the stage, who's the Professor of Political Science and also the Director of the Institute of Governmental Studies here at Berkeley.
Thank you, and let me add my warm welcome to all of you and express my admiration that you have trekked over here so early on a Saturday morning to participate in this inspirational meeting. I have to say, the last time I was at this microphone was a couple of years ago when I was teaching an introductory course in American politics to about 300 sleepy, disheveled, inattentive freshmen. So I'm teaching that class again next fall, and I want to invite you to substitute for those Berkeley students. I promise you, you will be very, very welcome. My role here is to echo the remarks, but I won't repeat the remarks of my colleague, Professor Price. But my role here is really to acknowledge and to thank all the many people who have made this conference possible. And I must say that along with Bob, I was somewhat one of the people who warned Dariush that his ambition was great, but that great ambition has been clearly realized. This conference is really a tribute to collaborative interaction and dedicated teamwork aimed at promotion of high technology entrepreneurship in Iran, hopefully soon enough when circumstances will change to allow this to happen. Dariush tells me that roughly 150 organizers, funders, volunteers, institutions, sponsors, and supporters have coalesced to make this possible. I truly commend you and thank you for all your efforts. And there are obviously too many people of 150 to thank individually, but it is important to recognize a few leaders without whose tireless effort this gathering would not have been possible. And I'm going to mention and hopefully pronounce the names reasonably well. Yaya Tabesh, Kamran and Zore Elahian, Amir Zarkesh, and Darius Zahidi. Yaya Tabesh is a visionary professor from Sharif University who has trained many of Iran's best and brightest minds, including the first woman and the first Iranian recipient of the Field Medal, which is the equivalent of the Nobel Prize in mathematics. And that is truly, truly impressive. Professor Tabesh is in many ways the visionary behind today's conference. Kamran and Zore Elahian, the renowned entrepreneurial and philanthropic husband and wife team, were really instrumental in conceptualizing this event and helping organize, implementing it, and in raising funds to make it possible. They apparently were engaged in a friendly competition as to who could raise the most money for this conference and related subsequent events. And I don't know who ultimately won, but we are all the better off for this competition. And I want to thank all of the donors who made truly generous contributions to make this possible. As the director of the Institute, I was responsible for signing the thank you notes for these donations, and it was really, truly impressive. In addition to being a successful high-tech entrepreneur, Amir Zarkesh is a master in the art of organization, managing, coordinating, communicating, and he was critical in making this happen. Finally, my good friend, Dariush Zahedi, apparently excels in the art of persistent pestering, including pestering me and my staff to get things done on time, and he was instrumental in convincing us to lend its support to this conference. Let me say just a word about the program in general. The program in Entrepreneurship and Development in the Middle East, directed by Dariush, is the primary organizer of this conference, which follows upon a very successful conference last year about Turkey. This program is actually a novel initiative that tries to get at a question that is increasingly of common concern: how best to build and sustain open economies, societies, and polities in the Middle East and North Africa region. We're actually living in a world in which two fundamental processes are colliding. We have on the one hand economic globalization, which brings interaction among different societies and cultures and enables the movement of ideas, goods, people. On the other hand, there is the world, the security world, the political world of nation states with competing ideas about security and governance, and these two processes obviously collide with consequences that have to be worked out, hopefully in a peaceful way. So how best to build and sustain open economies in the Middle East is a succinct summary of an immensely complicated dilemma, as timely as the headlines in today's newspapers, but it is a complex and enduring issue. There are a large number of Middle East centers and study centers on Islam, centers on Islam and democracy, various programs at various American universities. But I don't think there are many that focus on the relationship between the promotion of entrepreneurship and the development and attainment of open societies. So it is greatly appreciated that your support will enable this program here at Berkeley to sustain its efforts beyond today with additional conferences, additional research projects, and hopefully beneficial real-world consequences down the road. So with Iran pursuing economic diversification and the prospects for the reduction and eventual lifting of sanctions improving, we hope, I think the time is certainly propitious to explore and debate the role that high technology can play in Iran's economic development and diversity and in building a new bridge between our two countries. I want to add my special welcome and thanks to the speakers and panelists who have traveled, some, as we know, from Iran itself, made this long, long trek here to the west coast of the United States, and I hope they will not only edify us, but also enjoy their time here. So welcome and have a great conference.
And I also wanted to talk to you about how you're going to interact with the speakers. So you can imagine with 700 people in the room and thousands looking from online, that it's difficult to do live questions. So we've set up a site at it's called Conference.io. We're about to pull up the information here on the screen. And that way you can actually input questions that you want to ask for every single speaker and every single panel. We're going to stream them here on the screen. You'll see now they're empty because there haven't been any questions yet. But we encourage you to use your phones to go to the link, which is I believe it's bridge.conf.io. We'll have to pull it up here on the screen. But it's a very easy to remember link. On silent. And also mentioning the phone, unfortunately we don't have Wi-Fi here at Berkeley that is open, so hopefully your LTE or 4G or 3G will be intact. So once we get that slide up, we can talk about the conference link. But it's a great way to actually moderate questions. So the speakers speaking from the podium and also the panelists will be able to engage with whether you're miles and miles away or whether you're here. We should have that up soon. I see it here in front of me. There we go. So the link is bridge.conf.io. We have this QR code. We're going to have a larger one if your phone can't make it this far on the next slide. But you can see the user interface here. Just tap the plus button to ask a question, and it'll be organized by different panel and different speaker. And then also you can vote up questions. So if you find one that's really interesting, one that someone already asked that you had thought of, you can easily just vote it up there, and the speakers will be taking the highest ranked questions in the time that's allotted. So feel free, we actually are going to go into our first speaking presentation in just a couple minutes. So here's the QR code that takes you directly to conf.bridge.io. The Twitter hashtag is Bridge2014. And we encourage you to post on social, take photos, share your thoughts from today.